welcome to this week's video. Now, a couple of weeks ago I disappeared down an old school non-internet related rabbit hole. I guess this is something we used to do before the internet, but lately the only rabbit holes I go down are internet related ones. And what prompted this was I was doing a gig with Ben Nichols, who's the bass player who was in one of my first bands. If you're familiar with the folk circuit, he plays with Seth Lakeman and Cara Dillon. He's played with Billy Bragg. And he was in my first ever band, and we actually did a gig together, which we hadn't done for a long time. So to promote the gig, which was in Worthing on the south coast of the UK, I dug out all the press cuttings and photos from when we won the Battle of the Bands in Worthing in, I think it was 1991. So I think I was about 16, 17 then, and we wrote all the songs, and we beat the reigning champions in the first round, and we also managed to get a poster done by someone who was an associate of one of the guys who did all the graphics for the Gorillas. And while I was digging around in my old stuff, I found a whole box of cassettes which I'd kept. Now, I pruned down my cassette collection. I got rid of all the albums that I'd bought on original cassettes. I probably shouldn't have done, but you only have so much space, don't you? But I kept all the ones of me playing. All the way back, I discovered I found loads of stuff that I didn't know I had. And then, ironically, I had to borrow a cassette player because I didn't have one, and the person I borrowed it off was Ben, because Ben, well, he's a collector, shall we say. That's a kind of way of putting it. He has got so much stuff, it's unbelievable. He's got a whole studio full of gear that he's got from one place or another. It's a pretty impressive collection. So I borrowed this rather nice Technics tape deck of him and started digitising the cassettes, and I discovered that I've got cassettes going all the way back to, well, I've got some going all the way back to when I was about 4, but the one that I'm interested in is from when I got my first electric guitar, from when I was about 12 or 13. And what I found fascinating is listening to how I improved over that time, going from really not knowing what I was doing to then playing with some bands that were older than me, and then up to the point where I started playing with professional bands. Now, this is probably more interesting to me than anyone else, but I thought it's quite a common question: how long will it take me to get out gigging from when I start learning the guitar? So I thought, well, the only way I can really give an answer to that is by plotting my own progress. So I thought I'd do that in this video. Plus, it's given me a good excuse to get all these old cassettes and tapes out, and, well, it's a good little memory for me. Anyway, so if you're interested, carry on watching. So to give some background, I started going to watch my dad playing in a trad jazz band from when I was very young. He played banjo in a trad jazz band. He doesn't play anymore, unfortunately, but so I used to love it. I used to go and watch, and I pestered him to start playing, and I was about 4 when he gave me a little ukulele banjo. Got it here on this picture. I'm a bit older in this picture, but this is the ukulele banjo. And then when I was 7, I started learning guitar at school. I was allowed to start a year early because I could already play the ukulele. Here's a photo of me around that time in my very 70s looking bedroom. And then, from not long after that until I got one, I pestered him to get me an electric guitar because I was completely obsessed with it. And I think I got my first electric guitar from when I was about 12 or 13, probably 12, and it was a Marlin Sidewinder. Anyone remember those? I've actually still got mine. So the first recording I found, I think I'm about 13 probably, and I remember I'd borrowed a book called How to Play Lead Guitar, and it had the pentatonic scale in it, and I discovered that if I played that pentatonic scale over some stuff, then it sounded quite good. It sounded like lead guitar. And it's difficult for younger people to appreciate now that we didn't have YouTube, so all you had was the records, and at this point I'd never sat with anyone who could play lead guitars before I started taking lessons. So I just had this book, and I just had to kind of look at that and work out what I was hearing and try and get somewhere. So I'm just going to play you this, and as you'll hear, this is my first attempt, or one of my early attempts at trying to play some lead guitar. So I seem to remember this recording was made in the drummer's front room. Mark Ayling on drums and Steve Davey on guitar. Steve Davey is the person who still has taken all my publicity photos recently and done videos for me, so yes, we're still very much in touch. So this was a long time ago. It was in Mark Ayling's parents' front room, and I seem to remember losing my plectrum at this rehearsal and finding it in the bottom of a cup of tea. Anyway, so let's have a quick listen to this. So I don't know whether that would have been my Marlin, and I think I had a PV amp, either a little practice amp, and then I got a PV Bandit, which was a bigger amp, and I maybe had an overdrive pedal, I can't remember. Anyway, so there you are. That's what it sounded like before I had any lessons. Now the next clip I found is a little bit later, and it's with bass player Mark Howard, who incidentally I saw a couple of weeks ago at that gig I was publicising. He came along to watch me playing with Ben. So This is a little blues jam we were having probably at his house, and I seem to remember we used to both plug into his amplifier. He used to plug his bass into one socket and I used to plug my guitar into the other. So let's have a listen to what that one sounds like. I don't think I'd started having lessons at this point, but it sounds like I've got a hang of the bends and the vibrato maybe, so maybe I had started having lessons there. But the next clip I found was, of all those guys that you just heard me playing, we had a band together and we found a singer who was in the year above called Matthew Harvey. Again, I'm in touch with, and he's now a published author. He's written loads of books. Check him out. Anyway, he's singing on this gig and I've got a whole recording, and this recording had a date on it, so I know I was 14 on this. I was nearly 15, but I was 14. And this first clip is me playing this solo from All Right Now. I forgot how long I've been playing this solo, and incidentally in these cassettes I found the cassette of Roger, who taught me, and I'd obviously been having lessons by this point, showing me how to play it, which must have been one of the most important lessons in my life, because I've played All Right Now about a zillion times since then. So this is me playing All Right Now when I was 14. I've cut the end off because the end gets really bad. I can't listen to it. I'm like, oh, I can't quite get the bend there. But I'm doing all the fast bits in time, which is unusual. And then I just found a little bit of me improvising. It's knocking on heaven's door. And I'm improvising. I'm not doing what a lot of people I'd heard doing. And because I sensed this at the time, playing a minor pentatonic because it's in G. I was playing like an E minor pentatonic because it fitted better. So here's just a little bit of that. So not playing a sort of set solo. And then this last one, and this is funny, I'd completely forgotten about this, but I was having lessons by this point and I was trying to learn the Eddie Van Halen Beat It solo. So with the confidence of youth, I'm attempting it here, which as you'll hear, I got about the first bend and an approximation of the first tapping bit, then kind of it all fell to pieces. But I thought it was funny I was doing this, and it's also funny to think that that song had only been out about 5 or 6 years at that point. So and at the end of this recording the singer goes, "Eat your heart out, Eddie Van Halen," which I think is quite funny. So here we go. And then, I'm guessing this was a couple of years after that, when I was about 16, I joined a pub blues band run by guys that were about my dad's age, and we went all around the south coast of the UK, well, kind of Sussex and Surrey maybe, doing pub gigs, which was a great learning experience. And we went into a studio, and I think this was probably the first time I went into a proper studio, one of the first times, and I found the recording of that, which I'd kind of forgotten about. And this is, so I don't know if it's a Fabulous Thunderbirds song or something, but there's a marked improvement from that last clip to this one. So I've obviously been doing quite a lot of gigs with them at this point, and I can hear the Steve Ray Vaughan influence. So check this out, and I think this would have been through my Marshall amp with my American Standard Strat, which I've still got. If you look back over my videos, I'm showing you some of these guitars and the Marshall amp, which is actually here right next to me, which I've dug out recently to go with play with my Eddie Van Halen guitar, as it seems to work quite well with that. So this is me playing some bluesy stuff when I was about, I'm guessing, 16. So the next bits I found, I was about 17, and I'd still been playing with Ben up to this point, and I'd started depping with some pro bands at holiday camps and the odd function. And at this point, when I was 17, Ben went off to study music at university in London, and we'd been writing songs for quite a long time, and he had the chance to use the recording studio at his university. So I went up to London and we recorded, and it was all on tape then, it was before computers. So here's a recording of us recording in the studio, a guitar solo from that time. So I think I'm about 17 on this one. I think you can hear the kind of funk influence there. We're going a bit jazzy, aren't we? Soon grew out of that, luckily. So this next clip, we got to record in a fantastic studio. It was at Surrey University, and they had a state-of-the-art Neve desk. It was still all on tape. I think it was a 24-track tape machine, and they had a massive Neve desk because I think Rupert Neve had worked at Surrey University, or there was some connection. And it was the first time I ever saw motorised faders. And when the guy showed us, I mean, it seems silly now that you can get one for about 100 quid that sits on your desk at home, but this was a huge Neve desk, and he showed us all the motorised faders working. I've never seen anything like it. It was like magic. How are you doing that? Anyway, we managed to record some original songs. Still some of the stuff that I'm really most proud of, and the vocals aren't very good on it, and I'd like to re-record it properly, singing it properly with Ben again at some point, which hopefully we will do, because I listened back to it and there's about 4 good songs on there which I think are worth reviving. Anyway, here's a little clip of a solo from that session. So one last clip to play, and this was, again, Ben was in this band, and this was a band that I can't remember how we got into it, and they were kind of writing this sort of quite sophisticated funk stuff, and it was the first time I'd played with players who were sort of top flight musicians. This recording is actually a live recording. It was at the Bass Clef in London, I think, and the brass players were West End guys, I believe, playing these incredibly complicated brass parts. But this was a live recording off the desk, and I listened back to this. So this is the kind of last one. I'm guessing I was about 19 here, and this is the kind of last recording. I've got more recordings, but cassettes that go all the way up to when everything went digital, but they're all after I kind of became a professional musician when I was about 21, I guess. No, it's probably younger than that. So this was the last one, just as I think this sort of hit the point where I was doing pro stuff, so I thought that was for the subject of this video, that's at the point where I'm going to stop. So I'm going to play this because I'm rather pleased with this. So I'm going to leave you with this clip. This band was called Brave New World. I think I'm looking at from when I was about 13 to maybe 18, 19. So it's 5 or 6 years I've gone from not really being able to play right up until sort of turning pro, I guess. So if there is an answer to that question, maybe it takes 5 or 6 years. I guess the difference was I was young then and had lots of time to practice, because I certainly don't make progress like that anymore. It's amazing to look at the amount of progress you make when you first start, and since that point I can hear stuff that I still play in these later recordings, and now I only make incremental improvements, if any at all. Probably get worse actually. Anyway, I'm going to leave you with this one. Thank you very much for watching. I bring out new videos at 7 PM UK time every Friday. Please hit subscribe, hit like, leave me a comment. I always like to get a comment. Let me know what you think of these old recordings. I hope it was interesting. I found it interesting, and I've got this here for me to watch when I get even older. So here we go. I'm going to leave you with this little bit of audio from when I was, I guess, 18, 19.